All right, man. So peace. I decided to start this series, the responding to your comments series, because I see a lot of comments that need to be addressed, and I'm not somebody to go back and forth on the comments. Like, I really don't have time for that. But I think that there are things that people can learn from the comments in regards to certain issues that so-called black people have, and the reasoning behind my statements about the so-called black community. A lot of times it gets played out in the comments or in the sports world or whatever, whatever the normal topic is. Every response is not that deep, but sometimes or pardon me, every comment doesn't necessitate a response predicated on any depth or any scope community wise. Sometimes a comment is just a comment. But I'm going to respond to certain comments, and you guys can go from there. So the first one, I'm on the Russell Westbrook one. I'm going to go through these different videos, probably the last 5 videos or 6 videos I've made. I'm going to go through them, and we'll see the comments, and I'll address them directly instead of going back and forth in the written comment section. First one is from this guy, AP. He says, people forget that Pippen punched MJ in the mouth at practice because Jordan was bullying the other teammates. Pip brought that team together, not MJ or Phil. When Mike left for 2 years, Scottie took over and led them deep in the playoffs. Not many teams lose the best player in the world and still carry a bad Bulls team to the playoffs. Scottie is easily top 20 player all time. Well, look, this is part of what I talk about when I say this is a pro-truth channel. A lot of the problems that our people have is that our people don't respect facts. All right. First off, if Pippen ever punched Jordan in the mouth at practice because Jordan was bullying the other teammates, I need some documentation on that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I've never heard that story. All right. I've heard Jordan punch Steve Kerr. I heard Jordan punch Will Perdue. I've never heard that Scottie Pippen punched him in the mouth defending the team. Never heard that. Not saying it didn't happen. If it did, please provide the link. Sometimes people have a issue with certain players, and they start to hear what they want to hear. They start to remember what they want to remember about history, and they start to make up facts. What Trump calls alternative facts. That's a very relevant term because that's been going on for a long time. A lot of people create alternative facts. But I don't remember Pippen ever punching Jordan in the mouth. So it says, when Mike left for 2 years, Scottie took over and led them deep in the playoffs. No, he didn't. In 94, he led them to the second round. They lost in 7 to the Knicks. That's not deep into the playoffs. Deep into the playoffs is conference finals or further. And the next year, they were a 500 team until Jordan came back. And Jordan, out of shape, took them 13-4. And he took them to the second round of the playoffs. All right, so that's the truth behind that. It says, not many teams lose the best player in the world and still carry a bad Bulls team to the playoffs. No, that wasn't a bad Bulls team. That team had 2 other All-Stars in 94 other than Pippen, that being B.J. Armstrong and Horace Grant. Whether you want to talk about if they really deserved it or not, that's another topic. But they also brought in Tony Kukoc, Ron Harper, Luke Longley, Steve Kerr, and a couple other players as well. All right. That team brought in a lot of the role players that would be essential in the second three-peat right before that 93-94 season. So a lot of guys, they come on the internet and they make these statements and they try to act like they're informed about what happened. When I'm not saying that you didn't see that team, but your comments tell me that you probably didn't see that team. All right, that you probably just talking. But it is what it is. That's okay. It says Scottie is easily a top 20 player of all time. Nah, bro. No. Scottie was a very, very good, borderline great all-around player. He came up short in the clutch most of the time, which is why Phil Jackson benched him in Game 3 of the 94 semifinals against the Knicks when he designed to play for Kukoc, and he got mad and he stayed on the bench. All right, there's a reason why Phil Jackson did that. Like I said initially, Scottie was not a good clutch player. He just wasn't. All right, and when you say that he's a top 20 player, I think that sounds good until you start to sit down and you make the list of top 20 players of all time. Bruh, Scottie is an all-time great complimentary player. Like he's on the list with guys like Kevin McHale and James Worthy as the greatest complimentary players ever. Pau Gasol, those type of guys, championship level complementary players. He's on that list. But when you start talking about top 20 players ever, you're talking about guys who led their teams to championships. Most of the time, multiple championships. That's not Scottie. Sorry. All right, this cat Hebrew to Negro with the black boy avatar. He said, when Mike left, they only lost like a few less games each season. Well, yeah, they lost two less games than they had won the previous season. But like I said, it's because they brought in a whole bunch of new players. And if anybody remembers that season, if they remember watching that season, the Bulls played every regular season game that year, 93-94, like it was Game 7 of the finals. That's why they won 55 games that year as opposed to the 57 that they won the previous year. And when they won 57 games the previous year, which was Jordan's last year before he retired, the Bulls coasted that season because right before that season, Jordan and Pippen had played in the Olympics, for those who remember. And Jordan didn't even come to training camp, if I remember correctly. All right. He didn't even come to training camp because he needed time to relax. Normally he golfed in the summer and he worked on his game. Due to the Olympics, he was too tired. So they coasted that year. That's why they didn't even have the number 1 seed. But it's just funny, the people who try to detract from Jordan, they always say the same thing. Well, he left and they only won 2 less games. But nobody talks about how the season after that they were 500. And then the season after that, they won 72 games when Jordan came back for a full season. So, I always say, life is about the narrative. Do you know the truth or do you just regurgitate the narrative? A lot of guys just regurgitate the narrative. Okay, now this brother J. Rue, he said, yep, they won more games with Pippen and got robbed by the league, a.k.a. Davis Stern in the playoffs. I believe they didn't want them to win without Jordan. Bro, that year, that was a scratch-off year for the NBA. They were shocked that Jordan retired. They didn't care who won the championship. If you understand the dynamics of what was going on when Jordan retired at the end of 93, the 93-94 season was an open season for anybody to win it. The NBA decided to make the plan to build up Grant Hill. They knew that the 93-94 season was going to be Grant Hill's last year in college. So they already made plans to build him up. If you remember 94, when Grant Hill came in, they were already pumping him up as the new Jordan, the new Dr. J. He was the classy guy who went to the basket and dunked on people. That's if you watched basketball back then, you know that. All right, so no, it wasn't about them not wanting to win if Jordan wasn't there. It was about Hugh Hollins being a jackass and always making some wild or strange call. All right, that was a Hugh Hollins thing. That wasn't an NBA thing. The NBA didn't give a damn who won a championship that year. And for those of you who think that the NBA suspended Jordan because of gambling, Jordan had wanted to retire after the first championship, but his father talked him in the stand. Oh, pardon me, I have that reversed. Jordan's father wanted him to retire after the first championship, but Jordan, to go play baseball, but Jordan decided to keep playing because he wanted to go back to back. After he went back to back, he was going to retire after the 92 season when they went to go play in the Olympics, and then Phil Jackson encouraged him to come back to do the three-peat thing. And then that's why he played as long as he. Jordan been wanting to leave basketball. All right, Jordan is a mercurial type of dude. He's a dude that's all over the place. His brain is all over the place. He's a guy who, he wants to play basketball. He wants to play baseball. He wants to ride motorcycles. He wants to play golf. Like, that's just the type of guy he is. His brain just moves super, super fast. For those of you who don't know, Jordan has an IQ of almost 200. All right, he's a extremely intelligent dude. But anyway, let's go on and let's see who else made a comment that I feel like I need to respond to. King Arthur said, "Oh, you're a very intelligent brother. I sincerely enjoy your content, brother. I appreciate your comment. All right, thank you." King Arthur, by the way, was a so-called black man. Now, this brother responded. He said, "You can be just as intelligent too if you read and study." Well, that's not really true. Intelligence is a gift. Is a gift from the Most High. All right. Your intelligence is predicated on how gifted you are. Your knowledge is dependent on how much you read and study. All right, there's a difference between knowledge and intelligence, right? You can increase the level of information that you have. You really, it's difficult to increase your intelligence. That's like somebody who goes and plays basketball 5 hours a day. That doesn't mean that you're going to be Michael Jordan. All right, you have to have the gifts that he was given, right? Or LeBron James or Magic Johnson. You have to have those gifts. All right, but what you can do is you can maximize what you've been given. Let's see here. What else? I know there was another comment that I wanted to respond to here. Oh, Hollywood Hawkins. Chronicles, can you do a video or explain in a video what cheating is? Because today's women in America got it backwards. LOL, I'm getting responses from women as if they are men. It's crazy. Well, bro, I might do a video on it. I'm going to touch on something in this video in regard to a couple of silly so-called black women who try to go back and forth with me over scriptures. The problem is that a lot of these females, they in America, they're not given any restrictions. All right. So they have a very inordinate understanding of what their role is in society. They think that they're above men. All right. They try to act like they're equal to men through the so-called feminist doctrine, but they really believe that they're above you. All right. And a lot of it's the so-called black man's fault. The way to handle a lot of these women, bro, is to either be very honest with them from the start and show them that you don't need them, or just completely ignore them. Those are the only two ways to stop the games and the nonsense. Because if you don't, they're going to be the tools. To be quite honest with you, they're going to be the tools of an energy of confusion. All right. They love to promote confusion. The majority of these modern day liberal females, that's what they like to promote. But cheating, to answer your question, cheating is when a woman sleeps with a man other than her man, or if a man sleeps with another man's woman. Cheating is not if a man is dealing with multiple women. Is if you sleep with another man's woman. Okay, that's so-called cheating, and I don't like to use that term because we're not taking a test. You can only cheat on a test. All right, but that's what it's more like infidelity. So if you're with a female and she's sleeping with multiple dudes, then that is infidelity. All right, a woman is only supposed to be with one man. A man can have more than one woman. I said can, right? Not should. Not necessarily should, right? There's certain situations where a man shouldn't have a woman at all, right? For some of you brothers who are still trying to figure out who you are as a person, for some of you brothers who are who don't have a stable income, for some of you brothers who are not stable-minded, who are still growing, it's probably best that you do not have a woman. All right, until you know who you are. It's good to go into a situation knowing who you are so that you know what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate. A lot of you brothers end up in these bad situations where you have children by these different women and, oh man, she changed into a different person. Bruh, she didn't change into a different person. She just showed you who she really was because she got tired of acting, because you were simple. You're getting these women pregnant after knowing them for 5 or 6 months. You know how long you have to know a woman to, for her to receive your seed? Don't you know it's a blessing to give a woman your seed? That's like a farmer who buys a plot of land and the soil is rich, but you have the best seed for crops on the planet. The so-called black man's seed is a royal seed. You have to understand that. That's why, once again, they promote this stuff about the woman makes the child. And there's not one case of a woman creating a child at home. Not one in history. All right, not one. And for those of you who say the so-called Virgin Mary, no. All right, not Mary either. Mary had sex with Joseph and made Christ. All right, for those of y'all who don't know, but that's a whole other topic. I'll probably get responses about that. But like I said, this is not really a biblical channel. I'll touch on certain biblical topics, but when you speak about the Bible, you always have all these delusional people who come around and try to act like they know what they're talking about, and they really don't. All right. But yeah, brother, that's all cheating is. But you have to, as a man, you have to set the standards for what the relationship is going to be. You have to, once a woman shows that she's not going to abide by the standards that you're setting, you have to cut her off immediately. A lot of y'all brothers, y'all play too many games with these broads, man. Y'all tolerate too much shit. And then y'all wonder why it becomes a shitty situation. It's because that's what you established from the jump, that you're going to tolerate her arguing and her disrespect. And look, this is not here. This is not a so-called democracy. We're not going to be in the Congress, you know, in the chambers of the Congress arguing back and forth. You know, we can have discussions on things. You have the right to so-called disagree. We have an intelligent discussion. If you're not coming with any type of logic or reasoning, then you know what? Have a nice day. You can go call back that raggedy ass ex-man of yours and go deal with him. You know, go make it a blockbuster night with him. No, Netflix and chill, whatever niggas call it today. You know, that's all. You brothers tolerate too much. That's why I said that whole thing with Ray Rice and the chick, his so-called wife, that was his fault. Because for y'all to be going back and forth, spitting on each other, slapping each other, and all that other nonsense, that craziness out in public, can you imagine what they were doing behind closed doors? And you know why that was? Because the so-called black man is infatuated with this down-ass chick, this ghetto hood rat. Oh man, she's sassy. I like me a sassy woman. Yeah, okay. You go ahead and like you a sassy woman, nigga, while you getting locked up every other week with that nonsense. No other nation of men tolerate that. And that's why I say the so-called black man has no culture. When you have a culture that sets standards for the female and how she's supposed to conduct herself, and it establishes with the man what he's supposed to tolerate. All right, y'all tolerate way too much, way too much, and it is culminated with this buffoonery about the black woman is God. All right, I hear niggas say that, you know, we have nothing else to talk about. Conversation over. So let's see what else here is. This brother's Swaggerite 24/7. He said, "Hey bro, you don't mind doing a video on Jacob and Esau and how that relates to races and or power anarchy of today? Peace." Peace to you too, brother. I might do a video on it. Like I said, this is not a Bible channel, but you know, people keep asking me about these different things. That's another topic that's going to be quote unquote controversial because you have a lot of people who are trying to push this stuff about how Esau is Arabs, and I think there's some comments down there on this page where it says that that Esau are the Arabs and a bunch of other dumb shit. All right. To be honest with you, bro, there's a lot of people that are so-called Israelites that don't know what they're talking about. That they just talking and they trying to get attention. I call them pro-black Israelites. A lot of these so-called pro-black Israelites, you got to watch out for them, man. And let me say this too for a lot of you young brothers. I'm not trying to make this into, because I don't even like to address a lot of this stuff on this channel. But you young brothers that's getting into, that are quote unquote into knowledge. When you sit down and you listen to a man and you allow him to teach you, that's like you going to a school and you're paying tuition. There's a certain amount of prowess that a man is supposed to have when he's teaching you anything. All right. And you have to hold him to that standard. A lot of you young brothers are sitting down because y'all looking for male guidance. Y'all are allowing anything. You guys are not supposed to be paying no damn tithes to no damn body. All right. That tithing stuff, these men talking about you supposed to pay tithes. Let me tell you something. If you go into a school and, you know, certain people are so-called teaching you, then they have the right to ask you to help them with the funding for the building. But they should be giving you financial records for how that money is being spent. All right. You don't do things based off of faith when you're dealing with a lot of these people. You do things based off of knowledge. But these men should not be asking you for no damn tithe money. Tithing was a rule stipulated by the Most High to give the priests of the time, who were the Levites, a way to feed themselves. All right. And your tithe was a tenth of your crops, so on and so forth. That was for the Levite priests to eat because they handled the administrations in the temple. They handled the service of the Most High in the temple. All right. And their job was from sun up to sundown. Now we're living in a society where they are taking 40+% of your wages And these guys are still talking about you supposed to give them 10% of your income. You brothers are not supposed to be tolerating that. All right? You take it for what you want to take it for. Among that and among a lot of other doctrines that they teach, you know, but that's neither here nor there. I'll leave that alone for now. But Jacob is, brother, to answer your question, Jacob is us, the so-called black man of the captivity, and also a lot of other brothers that are scattered across the world. And Esau is the so-called white man. All right? Esau is the so-called white man. And when I say so-called white man, I have that loosely because it's by seed line. All right? You're going to have people who you might think are Caucasian because of how they look on the outside, that they're going to end up being a different nation other than the Edomite. All right? Same thing with Jacob. You're going to have people who you think because they look so-called black that you think that they're a so-called Israelite and they're not. All right? So you have to just stick to the scriptures to the best of your ability. But I'm going to address the Jacob and Esau thing more because there's another comment on this page that I want to deal with. Let me see here. I'm curious to your opinion on Michael Vick. I've heard a lot of people suggest he was or should have been the best quarterback of all time, and that he was sabotaged due to his skin tone. But up until his comeback with the Eagles, I never really thought he was much of a quarterback, more of a rare ultra high level athlete who just so happened to be lining up under center. I agree. Nobody sabotaged Michael Vick's career, especially not over no damn skin color. Michael Vick sabotaged his own career. By his own admission, he didn't study game film. He didn't study the game plan. He just wanted to, he just wanted to wing everything. And he was a follower. He wasn't a leader, which means that he really wasn't a good quarterback. Right? He wanted to run around and fight dogs. And that was his downfall. It is what it is. You have to understand something. This society is based in, and I've stated this before. This society is based in a lot of the Wiccan belief system, the Celtic Druid belief system. This is why the so-called white man now worships nature. He worships animals. All right. They have an organization called PETA, P-E-T-A. All right. That is an allusion to the god Ptah or Pan. All right. PETA. I told you before that term PETA is in reference to the Egyptian god Ptah or Ptamin. He's known in the Bible as Cush. All right. Cush went under numerous names: Ptah, Thoth, Mercury, Hermes. Right. He was also Pharaoh Menes, right? The first pharaoh of so-called Egypt. All right. Manes. All right. He was a god known to the Celts as Mani. That term Mani or Menes, it means the numberer. All right. He was the god of numbers, or viewed as the god of numbers. When I say the god, I mean the creator of numbers and arithmetic, astronomy, astrology. He created a lot of the pagan rituals and so-called pagan rituals and pagan rites. All right, that you still see in the so-called Catholic Church today. He's also known as Janus. All right, the god Janus was a composite of Pharaoh Menes as well as certain aspects of Noah. All right, not to go off on a tangent or anything like that, but just to give y'all a certain level of understanding. But yeah, Michael Vick, his career wasn't sabotaged other than by himself. I have some suspicions that a lot of what he went through may have been a ritual. Like he went from the Falcons to the Eagles, right? It's like going from it's almost like a ritual where he went from being he went from being Osiris to being reborn as Horus, the Green Man, right? Who was symbolized by the Falcon. But it is what it is. We'll leave that alone for now. But yeah, Michael Vick, he was just an idiot. Brothers got to start making better decisions. But like I said, this society, they worship animals, they worship nature. When you do anything to animals, I remember I mentioned in the Sinai Lathan video, the Sinai Lathan Something New series, that the Caucasian, he symbolizes himself with the dog. Right, the dog is one of his spirit animals. All right, the spirit animal of the so-called Caucasian is the dog, the goat. For the Caucasian Jew is the swine. And in their rulership, it's the eagle. You understand? So you'll oftentimes, if you mess with a dog, the so-called white man's gonna tear your ass up, period. All right? They love dogs because they find an affinity with the dog. All right? They love dogs intensely. So any type of assault on a dog, you finish. All right? But that goes back to the god Ptah. He was the god of nature, the god of animals. He's also known as Pan. He's the god of pedophilia. All right? That's Cush. But you know, I'll probably do a video on all that, going into Cush, Nimrod, and Semiramis later on in subsequent videos. We'll see. So let's see what else. Who else had a comment here? Oh, this brother QB coach. He said, "Peace, brother. In reference to this video, you have to look at Westbrick as a young Michael Jordan before Phil Jackson." Well, brother, I can't do that. You know why? Because a young Michael Jordan was averaging 35 a game on 54% from the field, and had 200 had over 200 steals and over 100 blocks in back-to-back seasons. He was the defensive player of the year the same year that he was the MVP. Like, I can't even compare them. I like Westbrook. He's an athletic freak. All right, but he has no understanding of the game. You know, he's one of those guys. It would do him well when he actually loses a step, because he actually moves too fast sometimes. All right, he moves too fast. He's always on 100. Sometimes you gotta know how to scale it back to about 75 and make you a better ball player. But you know, that's neither here nor there. Let me see here. Says, "I love the vid. Sports are rigged. I know you know that. Yeah, part of sports is that it's rigged because it's entertainment. All right. How do they rig it? They rig it through the officials. All right. They rig it through the officials and certain MK Ultra athletes that they have planted throughout the league, who suddenly turn off or turn on depending on certain traumatic things that happen, or certain mental suggestions made by their MK Ultra handlers. I don't know if you guys remember last year's finals. In game 3 of the finals, Steph Curry looked like he was in a daze. If you guys get the chance, go back and watch that. Go back and watch the video for that game. They were even saying, "Wow, what's wrong with Steph Curry? He looks like he's not here." Right? Something happened to him mentally, where somebody may have made some type of mental suggestion to him, totally tapped him out of the game. Right? He came back in game 4, was more focused, and but really he wasn't right that whole playoffs. They definitely wanted LeBron to win that final. There's no doubt about that. They want him to win this one also, because they want to push the Jordan versus LeBron thing. All right. Remember, this is all about entertainment. Let's see here. This cat Exodus. He said, "I agree with everything about this video, but Esau ain't the white man." Well then, bro, you know what? You have to tell me who the so-called white man is in history. All right? No disrespect, but a lot of you brothers, y'all think that history is a game. History is not a game. It's not something to be played with. It's something that you either know or you don't. All right? I saw you make a comment on the Shakespeare video that I did where you said, "Where are you getting this information that all of these guys were black-skinned?" Right? As soon as I read that you asked me where was I getting information that all of these guys were black-skinned, I said to myself, that's not common for a so-called black person to call themselves black-skinned, because even as ignorant as most so-called black people are, even they know that there are different shades of brown in regards to their skin color for the most part. So that told me that either you're not a so-called black person, or, you know, no disrespect, you pretty ignorant. All right. And I don't say that to be disrespectful or to make a personal attack. That's just a silly statement to say that somebody's black skinned. There's nobody black skinned on the earth. All right. But you have to tell me who Esau is and who the so-called white man is if they're not each other. It's very, very plain when you go through the scriptures who that's talking about. All right. It's very, very plain. And this cat Calvin McGee said, "No, he's the Arab man." First off, bro, there's no such thing as an Arab man, right? The term Arab is equivalent to the term black. All right? The term Arab is equivalent to the term black. Esau can't be the Arab man because the term Arab literally means mixed. Okay? That's what the term Arab means. It means mixed or mingled. That was a term that was used for the different tribes in Saudi Arabia who had mixed together, and people didn't know what their lineage was. So they called them Arab or Arab, meaning mixed. Okay? Just that you use the term Esau or Edomite means that you know what lineage they are. Okay? To give you guys some background on Esau or the Edomites, so-called Edomites, the bulk of them, or large party of them, left that region in the around the mid 10th century BC, 11th, 10th century BC, 9th century BC. All right, and they moved up into Central Asia. From there, they moved into what became known as Macedonia. All right, the so-called first rulership of the Caucasian came as the Macedonians. The Macedonians were Amalekites, right? Amalek is the grandson of Esau through Eliphaz, if I remember correctly. All right, and the way that you prove that is that when you look in the book of Esther, it tells you it calls Haman the Agagite, right? Agagite was a term that was used for the ruling house, or it was a term that was equivalent. Agag was a term that was used like Pharaoh. Like Pharaoh was a ruler in Egypt, Agag was a king of Amalek, of the Amalekites, right? So they call Haman an Agagite. So we know that Haman was of a higher or a royal bloodline of Amalek. Now, when you look in the continuation of Esther, if you have a King James 1611 Bible, I believe it's in the continuation of Esther, the 12th chapter, it tells you that Haman was a Macedonian. All right. So Macedonian is a conventional term, is a conventional historical term. Amalekite or Agagite are biblical terms because the Bible always gives you the seed line. The Caucasian man, he labels people historically based off of the region that they came from. You understand? So the Caucasian man will call people Romans because they came from Rome, or Babylonians because they came from Babylon. All right. The Bible oftentimes will give you the seed line. Or pardon me, the white man will say Mesopotamians. The Bible will say Babylonians. But oftentimes the Caucasian history is predicated on where people were from and not their seed line. All right. But there's a big movement amongst a lot of so-called modern day Israelites to tell you that the Caucasian man is not Esau. Why is that? Because some of them are putting out disinformation and some of them are just not informed. Like a lot of these cats don't know that the original people of Europe were not Caucasian. All right. These are what I call the so-called pro-black Israelites. That's why I always tell you about these so-called pro-black niggas. I don't deal with them because they're uninformed. All right. I don't have time for people who are uninformed. That's a waste of my damn time. I don't have time for that. And I say that not to be disrespectful. I just don't have time for it because uninformed people like to speak with authority and you cause confusion. All right. If you look up the original people who settled in Europe, whether they be the Etruscans, the Mycenaeans, the Minoans, they were all people of color. All right. The so-called white man is not indigenous to any land on the earth other than the caves of Central Asia, what they call the Russian steppe. And they came there from Mount Seir in the so-called Middle East. All right. That's where they came from. But even when you go into the scriptures, it tells you in Genesis, the 27th chapter, when Rebekah was assisting Jacob in getting the blessing and getting Esau's, quote unquote, Esau's blessing, even though we know it was preordained for Jacob to get the blessing. What did she tell Jacob? She told him to put on that coat of goat skin. Right? Now, who has hair, full body hair like a goat? The so-called Arab man doesn't. Right? Who has a full body hair like a damn goat? You tell me. And then you go back to, and it tells you in Genesis the 27th chapter that Esau would rule by the sword. That was the gift that was given to him from Isaac. Right? It said that you would throw off the yoke of your brother Jacob. That was a prophecy on how Jacob would be in rulership over him. When did that happen? That happened from the Holy Roman Empire, which started really around the time of Constantine the Great, where you can go even farther back to earlier emperors. I'm going to do a video about that very soon. All the way up to the probably about the mid 1500s, 1600s. All right. And then the so-called white man, he threw off that yoke, and he's been rising up in power, culminating with World War I, which is when he was at his peak of power. All right. So that's that. I mean, it's just, it makes too much sense. But a lot of times, because guys are not informed, they don't study history. They don't look at the Bible as a historical book. They just start to make stuff up. Or what they do is they regurgitate what they see on some of these pro-black Israelite pages on YouTube. Well, a lot of these guys who don't really research the history pertaining to Europe, and they just start going off the top and just spewing out what they were told instead of doing their own fact checking, right? And just to continue on with that theme, like I said, in Genesis, the 27th chapter, Rebekah told Jacob to put on a coat of goat skin so that Isaac would think that he was Esau, right? So then when we read Daniel, the 8th chapter, what's the what's the first kingdom that we see the Bible mentioned in Daniel, the 8th chapter? It talks about the he-goat who moved eastward with great choler, meaning great rage and anger. The he-goat is talking about Alexander the Great. All right. Like I said, the goat is a symbol of the so-called Caucasian. All right. That is one of his main symbols in regards to scripture, because the goat represents sin. Remember, on the right-hand side, Jacob represents the law, represents righteousness. On the left-hand side, Esau represents sin. All right. Everything in the Bible is done with an equivalency, with a just weight and a just balance, like it tells you in Proverbs 11:1. Like I said, this is not a biblical channel. I know some of you brothers don't believe in the Bible. That's fine. I'm not here to be ham-handed. I didn't set up this channel to beat people over the head with the Bible. But, you know, certain topics, if I'm asked certain questions, I am going to cover that. All right. But no, Esau is not no damn Arab. There's no such thing as an Arab. Arab means mingled people. All right. Arabs, people don't even know. And if you know anything about the modern day Arab today, the people that are in that land, a lot of them are mixed with the Ottoman Turks, who are Caucasians, the Ottoman and Seljuk Turks who came down there in the 1400s and on down, and killed most of the men and took the women. That's why you see they look like that. You know, the curly black hair and the hook nose and the darker skin, because they're mixed. The Caucasian came down there and raped most of the women after they killed the men. The original so-called Arabs looked almost indistinguishable from the so-called black man. All right. If you ever look up some of the people who are from Yemen, you'll see that a lot of them still retain a lot of the original look of the so-called people who are from that area. But they all have a lineage. That term Arab, is not possible for Esau to be an Arab, because the term Arab means that you don't know what their lineage is. All right. The term Esau or Edomite, right there, it contains the lineage. All right. Now, a lot of you brothers get caught up in the Nabateans or the Idumeans. Those were some of the leftover Edomites who didn't leave, and they ended up mixing with some of the other darker tribes that were there. And they also ended up mixing with the Romans and the Greeks when they conquered under Alexander, and later on under Pompey, right, when they came down into the land, and they intermixed. All right. But no, the Edomites, the bulk of Esau migrated upward into the central Asian steppe, and then migrated westward and became known as the Macedonians. All right. And then you had a contingent of them who went and settled in Rome, and they conquered the Etruscans, who were the original so-called Negroid inhabitants of Italy. They also conquered the Samnites. They had a war with the Samnites called the Samnite War, and I believe it was the 4th century BC. All right. They conquered that land, and then a few years later they had the war with the Carthaginians, who were a mixture of Canaanites and Hebrews, what you call the Punic Wars. They had 3 Punic Wars with them. All right. So that's the understanding on Esau. Esau is the so-called white man. They know it. Like I said before, ancient Rome, the Israelites at that time called ancient Rome Edom. And you can look that up. All right. The angel, the guardian angel of the Roman Empire was Samael, which was the angel of death. All right. That's why, like I've mentioned this I mentioned this previously. That's why America uses the emblem of Uncle Sam, right? That's an allusion to Samael. And notice, Uncle Sam has the goatee. All right, for the goat god. Like I said, the goat is the emblem of the so-called Caucasian rulership, or one of the emblems. All right, but that's neither here nor there. Let's go on. Let's see if there's any other comments here. Yeah, LeBron is the MVP each year, but just look at Westbrick should get it this year. Yeah, they're going to give it to Westbrick this year, bro. They're going to give it to Westbrick this year because Westbrick is the guy who the media has been trying to push for a long time. All right, they've been trying to push him for the last 5 years. Like I said, he's a phenomenal athlete, but whatever. Let me see here. Says, brother, can you do a video exposing the gay niggas in the industry? Because I'm tired of these fags making look okay to do that in front of children. Bruh. A lot of you brothers have to understand something. Things are not going to get better in this kingdom. It's only going to get worse. All right? It's only going to get worse. It's like sand draining out of the hourglass. Things are only going to get worse. They're not going to get better. That's why they hate Trump so much, because Trump represents a, I mentioned this before, he represents a alpha male Caucasian man, right? Trump is not here to bargain with you. He's here to tell you what it is. And you either going to follow or you're going to get left behind. They don't like that, right? They want the modernized so-called male who has to get permission from a woman to do stuff. That's why that's why they're trying to cast Hillary as this sympathetic figure, right? That Hillary Clinton's one of the most wicked people to ever walk the earth, allegedly. This woman has presided over child sex slave rings. She has her brother in charge of siphoning all of the natural resources out of Haiti. Now, mind you, Haiti is economically the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, but it has the richest resources of elements in the Western Hemisphere. Yeah, Haiti has like the largest gold, diamond, and oil reserves of almost any country in the Western Hemisphere. And she has her brother in charge of siphoning out all those natural resources. That's why I mentioned this in videos ago. I can't remember which video it was. All of these so-called politicians that serve in high office, they're billionaires. They just don't let you know that. Anybody who was in the White House is a billionaire now, for those of y'all who don't know. All right, that's why they can retire. Why do you think presidents, when they finish being president, they just retire, man? Ronald Reagan, they just retired. Ronald Reagan, by the way, was into zoophilia. For those of you who don't know what zoophilia is, that's having sex with animals. All right? That's why they made that show for him, Bedtime for Bonzo, where he's sleeping in bed with the chimp. He was into zoophilia. He also said one of his dying wishes was, don't let a nigger buy my house. All right? Might sound funny, but it's the truth. One of his dying wishes was that he did not want a so-called black man to buy his house. He hated so-called black people that much. All right? Old Ron. Well, let's see here. Well, yeah, brother, look, I used to do videos years ago about the homosexuals in the music industry. But, to me, it's so redundant now. Like, there's so much of that. Like, I wanted this channel to be something with new information. I didn't want it to have a bunch of stuff that you could find everywhere else. Like, there's so many videos of people talking about the gay people and so-called gay people in the music industry. Y'all should know by now that all these people are pansexuals. I don't even like to use the term gay, because most of these people, they'll just have sex with everything, in the industry. They'll just have sex with every damn thing. So it's not even worth half the time making videos about it. All right. But I might do videos about the music industry in regards to some of the pagan imagery that they promote, because the pansexuality is part of that. All right. It's part of the worship of the gods that they worship. All right. And I'm going to explain what I mean by gods in another response video that I do. I think I'm just going to do response videos, do one per, probably just do one per video instead of just going through different videos, making a response to everything, because the video is going to be too damn long. Let's see here. Let me see. What was behind D-Day? D-Day, brother, that was the that was the invasion of Normandy, if I remember correctly. Kind of got me on the spot here. That was the invasion of Normandy. If I remember correctly, it was June 6th. It was June 6th of 1945, and it was five beaches that they had to invade. It was Juneau, Gold, Sword, Omaha, and the last one skipped my mind, brother. I'm sorry. All right. But basically, they were trying to stage an offensive. They wanted to separate the Nazi front lines, because the Nazis were already fighting the Russians on the Eastern Front. And I'll probably do a video about World War II, because that's a very important video. But most of that was all set up. Hitler was a he was set up by the Theosophical movement, the Fabian Society, and the MI5. All right. He also was a illegitimate child of the Rothschilds. I believe his real name was Schicklgruber, if I remember correctly. All right. The reason why he invaded Austria first was because he was worried that the Austrian prime minister had his birth records proving that he was that he had so-called Jewish lineage. All right. But D-Day was I believe that D-Day, they wanted to land on a full moon, because that was going to be the only thing that was going to give them cover. And the tides, I think there was a heavy dependence on the tides that they needed, the sea tides, to stage an efficient attack. I know they had one general named Omar Bradley. He was one of the last, maybe the last 5-star general. And they just wanted to attack him on that front, from the Western Front of Normandy, to split up the Nazi forces. But the Nazis were all bankrolled by Standard Oil. IG Farben, if you don't know what IG Farben is, that was a chemical cartel that was that provided most of the machinery for the Nazi war machine. And IG Farben was totally funded by Standard Oil and by JP Morgan and by the Ford Motor Company. That whole thing was just a big setup by the bankers to get everybody in debt and for population control. That's all that was. But I believe that they wanted to have the invasion of D-Day on a specific night, on a full moon, or pardon me, on a specific day and on a full moon, for one of their ritualistic purposes. But it's hard to prove. I haven't. I always tell y'all this. I tell y'all what I know. I don't tell y'all what I think. All right. I tell y'all what I know. I don't tell y'all what I think. And I see sometimes people make comments. Oh, do you write notes? No, brother, I don't write notes. I'm just somebody who always has loved history. I don't play video games. I don't smoke weed. I don't collect sneakers. Don't get me wrong. I like nice things. I like nice clothes. But I've always been into history. And when I do read from something, I put it in the video so that y'all could read it too, or y'all could see it too. All right. But everything I say off of memory. That's why I forget names and I forget locations and things like that. Well, let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, that might be it for this video. Oh, this guy, he's still attacking Michael Jordan. He said, name a championship that Mike won without Pippen. I mean, what sense does that even make? That's like saying, name a championship that Magic won without Kareem. Name a championship that Isaiah Thomas won without Joe Dumars. Name a championship that Larry Bird won without Kevin McHale. That doesn't even make sense. The argument is kind of dumb. All right, but that's it on the comments. All right, brothers, peace.